feel like countdowns are intimidating a little bit. I don't know. I
Yeah,
just feel
I'm
like
so nervous.
kind of nervous. Like when it was going down, I was like, "Oh man, geez,
One.
wow, what's going on?" But thank you for everyone for checking this out. This is Trainer Talk. So this is a segment within a larger podcast, The Far Side of Fitness, and I couldn't think of two better people to do this with than Caroline and Julia, who were on the podcast, the larger podcast, a little while ago, talking about their company, Mobius. And so they'll talk to you about that. But I just really respect both these ladies, and they're just fun. They're easy to be around. And I thought I want to do something different. So I contacted both of them. They were totally down for it. So this is our Trainer Talk series. We'll talk a little bit about kind of the format and obviously what we're going to talk about today. But would love for Julia and Caroline. They could talk about themselves better than I could before that. So
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm Caroline, one of the co-founders of Mobius. I've been a personal trainer for about 5 years now. My fitness journey started, or I should say my professional fitness journey started actually on the yoga side of things. So I was a yoga teacher. I got my 200 hour in the summer of 2020. And kind of fell in love with the anatomy side of fitness. My yoga and teacher training was inspired by physical therapy and like a physical therapist. And so we were really heavily rooted in the anatomy of yoga. And I'm an engineer. So anatomy was very similar to like the body mechanics, how a machine moves and all of that. And so I wanted to kind of train based on what I learned from the anatomy in terms of like injury prevention. I was a chronically injured athlete throughout college, honestly, actually throughout my whole life. And understanding anatomy, I finally understood why and how my body was kind of moving improperly. So went from there, got my NASM certification, and then just loved yoga still. So then I got my 300 hour certification. And then that kind of launched me on my whole trajectory of quitting my job in construction as an engineer and starting this company with Julia.
Yeah, and then for myself, I'm Julia, other founder of Mobius. I have been a software engineer for 6.5 years, and during COVID, was working remotely, was spending a ton of time on a screen, and just started kind of wanting to start my own fitness journey and take that a little bit more seriously. So I started learning a lot about fitness, a lot about nutrition, spent a lot of time on social media for better or for worse, just kind of seeing the different trends there, but decided that I really wanted to become a credible resource for other people to learn about training and nutrition. So I got my personal trainer certification last January, and just since then have really like dove deep into the fitness side and wanting to help other people just learn like proper information. And very, very luckily, met Caroline last year, and we just totally aligned on kind of our goals and where we wanted to head. So yeah, we've been working together ever since.
fantastic. And it's kind of fun, like 5 years last year. And then I'm very old in this business now. I've been in almost 25 years,
Amazing.
training full time, running clubs, and doing literally, I think, every single thing a person could do in fitness at some point. And this podcast has been my passion to meet other colleagues, and I think it's going to be a great thing. And one thing I think before we launch into is I love being a trainer, and I have suffered in the past, especially early in my career, with feeling like, well, I should be doing more than this. And it's nice to be full circle all these years later, accepting what I'm doing, loving it, thriving in it. And we want you guys. This is a segment for trainers. It's a pros pro. So learn about and talk about some interesting topics, to say the least. So we're going to be doing this once a month. That's the plan. And every month, I think we're going to hit you with some pretty amazing topics. And so our first topic, I think, is pretty controversial. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what everyone says about it and certainly feedback. But we chose for today to talk about basically, should trainers look fit to serve the population they're with? Pretty hot topic. So let's launch into it. Julia, what do we think? Should we look fit to be working with clients to make us feel more credible to work with people?
I definitely don't think there's like one particular look that a person has to be a credible trainer. There's so many people that do look fit, and I've actually been told before, you look like a trainer. And I honestly was a little conflicted with that comment. Like on one hand, I was like, oh, I'm kind of flattered, but then I thought, like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm like intimidating? Does it look less approachable? So absolutely, like I think there's so many different types of people. There should be more diversity in the way that trainers look. Not all clients are looking for that like washboard abs, like very, very strong look. I think there's honestly like benefit in having more diversity because it makes you more approachable to other types of clients that are looking for different things.
Yeah, I would say like totally agree with that. I am definitely on the opinion that we should not be judging trainers by the way they look. And I mean, there's so many scientific reasons what behind that, but also like social reasons behind that, and just like mental reasons behind that. I'll talk about kind of the scientific part of it first. Like, you have no idea what their like hormone situation is. There are people with like thyroid issues. So if they're maybe training for a marathon, they might gain weight just naturally, and they might not change anything about their diet, or well, they're changing their exercise because they're running more, but that causes sometimes like weight gain. But that doesn't mean they're unhealthy. It just means they've added some body fat, and that's just how their body reacts to it. So that's like such a small specific example, but so many people go through different stages in their lives. If someone, I don't know, just had a child and they're just coming back in their postpartum body, they might look different. And also, if someone just like naturally holds on to weight differently than someone else, they can be the fittest person that you know, and like the healthiest person that you know, but they might not look the way a trainer you think is like supposed to look, but they are like the best at their craft. So like scientifically, like hormones are totally different. Genetics play a huge part of that. And then I can't really remember what else I was saying, but like as a society, I also think I also think it's really important for there to be, again, diversity in the trainer like world. I think for a really long time, um, the trainer and like fitness world was a little exclusive to the way people might look. And if I wanted to have a six pack, I'd have to starve myself. Like that's just like not in my genes. And so that if I had a six pack, I'd be a very unhealthy person, and I should not be getting paid to teach people how to do that. And so I think that just like I think it's important for also people growing up, and also just people seeing a trainer that like looks like them and that they can relate to. I think is super important. So a resounding no, we shouldn't be judged by their looks. And also, people should feel comfortable joining and becoming and learning how to become a trainer, or like becoming NASM certified or ESA, whatever it is. This is not sponsored by either of those. But I kept name dropping them. But yeah, they should feel comfortable just because they have a passion for fitness and the health world in general. But yeah, those are my few cents.
Well, we're going to make this a 3 for 3. I'm sorry to disappoint anybody, but I will add this because I've been around a while. I definitely had the opposite opinion when I first started in the
Hmm.
business, but I was also in a time where that was a really big deal, in the sense there wasn't a lot of diversity of thought when I started, like 2001. It was, you have to look a certain way. But I also think this stemmed from before I got in industry, a lot of training was just bodybuilding.
Right.
And we know, like in the 80s, especially, that's when training started to morph into the modern version of what it is. It was really just, honestly, just a bunch of guys who were huge, and they would go to gyms like, I want to teach people how to lift heavy things and stuff. It was like, okay. And I think over time, the trainer has started to look more like the general population, actually, which is a really positive thing.
Mhm.
But I do know that I definitely have colleagues who do not agree with us
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah.
What do you think that resistance is when you think, when I just said that, there are people who are still holding on to that?
I honestly think it's a deep-rooted insecurity. Um and like and they might not even know it. But I'm thinking about like my first like process of becoming a personal trainer and like all of that. I actually really related to a fitness professional because I had a whole eating disorder situation that happened when I was in college, and I was trying to become the smallest version of myself. And when I realized that that's like not the way to do things, and I love food and all of that, a different topic for a different day or a month, I guess. But um, I I think part of me was like when became the fitness trainer, all of that, I started getting nervous that I didn't look the part. But then I realized that, and I like put this pressure on myself to look the part. And I think because I put that pressure on myself to look the part, I felt like everyone else kind of had to follow in that realm of the way I was thinking, because it was an insecurity that I had like deep inside my own subconscious. And it wasn't until I became like way more comfortable in how I looked naturally and like in my most healthy body, that I started being like way more aware of, oh, this fitness can look different on everyone and like health can look different on everyone. But I do, when people get defensive over things like that, and I think just in general, defensiveness can typically come from like a deep rooted insecurity. And so that's what I would say. I would ask them to like maybe like take a moment and like think deeply on like why, if you gained like 4 more pounds, would that make you all your credibility go down the drain? And so that's my maybe controversial opinion.
No, I mean, I agree with that. And I think there's probably people that they've spent so much time like crafting this body and they're like, I'm deserving of this. Like, I've worked so hard to look like this. Like, I'm the more credible one. This person they don't look like they've worked as hard as me, so they shouldn't be treated kind of the same way. When in reality, they probably are working just as hard. It's just there's genetic factors or other factors for the reason that they don't look like you. And we already talked about that a little bit. But yeah, I think the insecurity is a huge part, and then just also like feeling like they've kind of earned it, and it's like a badge that you have to earn.
I'm going to add one more thing onto that because with my yoga background, I've done a lot of like understanding of the ego, and that is, I think, a huge part of it. I think people identify with their body and like the way they look. And so that identity, like that ego, the second that you start kind of like poking holes in it, it clicks on that defensiveness and it like clicks on that like feeling of you're losing your part of your identity. And a lot of people don't feel super comfortable letting that go.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I teach a few certified personal trainer classes at different colleges. So it's like a great test ground for these types of questions.
Yeah.
And at one of the places that I teach, Lionel University, it's all exercise science university. It's pretty cool. But we get a lot of people into my certified personal trainer class. And I would say an overwhelming majority of them are bodybuilders. And what's very interesting about, and very male for that, is they often think they're going to train their clients and how they like to look, essentially. They're like, well, everybody wants this kind of thing. Like you've probably heard, it's just lift heavy, get big, make these gains. And I was telling him, well, one of the guys there that was saying, I said, listen, I've been doing this a long time. I'll be honest with you, most people don't want to look like you. Like most general population people want no part of that, none. And they don't even have the time for it. And two, I think, as you said, Caroline, the what you would have to do would be so unhealthy to achieve this level. It would actually destroy a lot of other parts of their lives because they would have to be obsessed with it. And I think there was a light bulb moment for him. Is like, you have to understand that most people, you think you have to look a certain way, but actually other people are not seeing you that way. They actually see you. They think you're kind of like, this is weird, like that you look like this. Like, but you don't see that in your mind. You think I have to look like the peak level. And I always think I've hired so many trainers and clubs I ran and stuff. And actually trainers are some of the most unhealthy people I've ever met in my life. Like really unhealthy, disordered eating, very poor sleeping habits. I can't tell me how many trainers I hired at clubs that had the worst sleep habits. And I was like, what are we doing here? I was like, this is crazy. So there's this weird, almost cognitive dissonance that's happening in our profession related to that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think also just with the level of unfortunately unhealthy um, lifestyles in the training world, I think a lot of that has to go like leads into the pressure that they're putting on themselves that then is like it's a cycle. It's they put society puts the pressure on them when they enter the training world, then they put the pressure on themselves, and then they like continue that unfortunately ever continuing cycle of just unhealthy body image associations. And yeah, it totally leads to trainer burnout. It leads to mental health issues. And I'm sure there's a direct link. I can't cite it for sure, but I'm pretty sure there's a direct link of like having low or basically being in starvation mode if we're thinking about like the washboard abs type of trainer and difficulty falling asleep. So that all it all checks out.
Yeah.
And then that like perpetuates onto the client because now clients feel like they have to look a certain way and like they're like, oh, my trainer does this, and if I'm gonna like kind of be fit, then I now have to do these things as well. And like those behaviors just kind of perpetuate to other people. So yeah, it's really just it's the mindset needs to be changed like broadly for everybody.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. It made me think about this story. When I was in Vegas, I went to this huge party, and in the community that I was the GM of the club. And I remember I saw this big fondue like fountain, this chocolate fountain. I attacked
Oh,
it. I went
yeah.
hard, and all these people were staring at me. And then they said, "Why are you eating that?" I was like, "Why not? I don't understand what's the problem." Well, you're the general manager of the club and you're a trainer. Like, I don't understand why you're eating like that. And I was like, "See, this is part of the problem,
Hmm.
is all these preconceived ideas that, hey, you're supposed to look like this. You're supposed to be teaching me how to be perfect
Mm.
and my body and my habits." And then things. So it makes me think too. Also, do you think that a lot of trainers have body dysmorphia potentially from with this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I can absolutely say that I am a victim of the body dysmorphia. I would say it took me like years to get out of that like body dysmorphia mindset. And I have days where I'm like, oh, I look terrible and I'm like all like sad on my and I think that is very natural to have those days. Like we're not supposed to be seeing ourselves as often as we do. Like mirrors are everywhere, social media is everywhere. Like I'm constantly seeing my body. So I'm sure that's also like part of the issue. But yeah, but I would say I wouldn't be shocked if 98% of fitness professionals have dealt with or have body dysmorphia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
agree with
think it's
that.
got to be. Yeah, Julie, do you had some more to add to that?
No, I agree. I've dealt with similar things. Like I think it's pervasive in this industry.
Yeah, I think it's something. That's why I think this topic's really great because there's still enough people, enough of our colleagues who just think I have to be ripped, I have to
Yeah.
look a certain way. And I'm curious, I wanted to ask this question. You know, when formalized training began in the 1990s, third-party accreditation was a very male-oriented profession. I think the numbers were like 70-30, male to female. Now, the current statistics, I believe, by the uh, Labor of Bureau statistics, is women have overtaken men in the industry, and
Oh,
there's more women in fitness than there are men for that. Do you think that will play somewhat of a role in terms of the look and the feeling of like what a trainer should look like? That more women are now in the profession than there are men.
yeah. I think that I will say it could go, it could have gone one of two ways, but I think it's going this other direction. So I think I would say maybe in like 2021 to like 2023, honestly, maybe even 2024-ish, I felt like I was seeing a lot more like body positivity in terms of bigger bodied people in the training space. And then Ozempic hit. And I think with Ozempic and then also the rise of the Pilates princess body and like kind of that whole vibe. Um, and also the influencer world of fitness has like totally blown up. I've noticed a lot of people that I follow have totally thinned out. And I never would be someone to comment on it because one, like commenting on someone's body, whether you're commenting on them about how big they are or how small they are, all bad. Don't put your opinions on someone's body on someone else. But I do notice a trend of people getting smaller and smaller and leaner in the fitness
Mm.
industry, especially via social media. And I do think that this might be like a very small microcosm of it, but especially in the social media world, influencer world, these fitness influencers will be like, spend a day with me. They're walking like 10 miles a day on top of their training because they like get their 15,000 steps in per day and they do this. And then they're teaching a Pilates class, which when you teach Pilates, you typically you're like almost taking the class because you're like doing kind of most of the workouts with them. And then you take a Pilates class and then you also lift. And I'm like, oh my God, like no wonder these people are so tiny. They're working out like 4 times a day, basically. And so I think that is overtraining in general, I think is like an accidental trend that's happening. And I'm very curious to see if that continues or how that like shapes. But I do see a little bit of that whole trend of slimmer bodies moving for the future.
Yeah, I feel like we were going in the right direction, and I was like seeing a lot of like women being strong, like let's lift, let's be comfortable in the weight section of the gym. And then I feel like we just regressed over the last, I don't know, like 6 months to a year. Like I definitely at least on social media, what I'm seeing is trending in the opposite direction, and it's honestly too bad. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a very trendy space business where things just, I mean, I remember this is adjacent to it when no one really lifted weights, like especially women. It was not
Mhm.
happening. It was very cardio centric, even guys too. It was just, again, it was like just a lot of bodybuilders. It was a lot
Yeah.
of gigantic dudes, just huge. Just, I was like, wow, okay, this is, and then it just started becoming more weightlifting centric. And to now, what's interesting, again, these are just my own observations. I
Yeah.
don't, I just see it, and whenever I'm in gyms, it's very weightlifting centric now.
Yeah.
I feel heavily, there's more platforms in gyms than there've ever been, more resistance training, and a lot less cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory endurance. But if there is that, it's usually just walking on a treadmill, maybe a stair steppers. There's a lot of that. But this, I remember when the Stairmaster was big in the 80s. I mean, I remember it was huge,
Yeah.
huge. So for someone like me, it's pretty funny to see it. All these people trying to get on the
Yeah.
system, like it was like 30, 40 years ago. I'm like, it was like
That's
kind of
hilarious.
funny. It comes back
Yeah.
around, but I'm noticing that, and so I see a lot of bodies are moving toward what you're saying, or just, it's interesting, Julie, you said we're heading in the right direction. I thought that was interesting that you were saying that. And that, what about the last 6 months do you think changed? What is it, or a year?
Honestly, I don't know what happened. I don't It's just like I started seeing
I have
more of this
no clue.
content. It was just backwards. I don't know if like I honestly don't know what happened, if there was like something specific that triggered that shift. I just know I'm seeing more of it and I don't like it.
Hmm. Is it, do you think that, is there a deep seated desire? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there that, our colleagues or even clients, like they feel led to this type of figure or this look. It's appealing on some level. It's like, wow, they think this is glamorous. This is amazing. Like, I want this. I feel like people always want stuff that feels very big and glamorous, and
Yeah.
including bodies.
I think also the trend of like wellness and fitness has definitely skyrocketed. And I think people that are in the elite of society or wealthy or can afford certain things, they're now really focused on like health and wellness. So I also think like a certain body type is now being associated with wealth as well, or
No.
just like success, because you can spend time on going to the gym, because some
Yeah.
people just don't have time for it because they're working
Okay.
so much. I don't know, when I was working in construction, I had to be on the job site at like 6:30 in the morning before the sun would come up, and then I'd go to the gym at like 7 p.m. at night. But it's not like I can spend a couple hours in the gym or whatever on my health and wellness. So I do think there's also that level of um, association between like how fit you are and like potentially how successful you are.
Right.
Yeah, and on that like wealth side, you then have access to the trainer, the fancy classes, like kind of all these additional things that the normal person, they have to rely on their like own motivation and like willpower to like get themselves to a gym, get themselves through a workout. They don't have access to all these kind of other like fitness opportunities that might make it a little bit easier to get that done. Like group classes are great. They are motivating when you're around other people. There's like some competition aspect, but they're very expensive. Like I'm not going to a Pilates studio every week. It's insane. It's like $60
Yeah.
a class. And it's just like a small subset of people that can afford that. But like people are still like viewing that as desirable and wanting that.
Yeah. Do you think this also made me think, um, do you think how trainers perceive their bodies or how they should look, is there somewhat of a regional effect on this? So, I mean, basically, if you're in South Beach, Miami, and you're a trainer there, there's pressure to look a certain way,
Mm.
or New York City, or Los Angeles, or whatever it is. Do you think that plays a role into that as well?
Yes, and I also feel like it might be morphing a little. I feel like it used to always be kind of the surfer vibe, the smaller petite people were like very California, LA. And Miami, I feel like was a big muscle beach type vibe. Very tan, like able to spend, I don't know, hours outside by the ocean, whatever. And I think New York was probably less of that. I think that was probably more, I don't know, general normal body looks. But I think because of social media and the way trends like just take over industries, I feel like we're all kind of morphing into the same thing. And like there's not that difference in locations and like where you come from, which is great that more people are getting access to different opportunities and different experiences. But I do think it's kind of like we're all becoming the same person. It's a little scary.
Interesting. Do you think, either of you think there will be a pretty long, like, what's the future of how we're going to look in the business over time, the next 20, 30 years? What do trainers look like, you think?
I don't think this is something that people can keep up long term. I just don't think it's healthy. And I think people will have, I don't know, things in their lives are going to change. Like they're not going to have as much time or maybe as much money or anything like that. Maybe a new trend will be, I don't know, back to the heavy Olympic lifting and we're all going to be Olympic lifters in like 20 years. But I do think there's just going to be ebbs and flows. Um, and so you said what was it, 40 years ago the Stairmaster was big,
Yeah, I mean,
maybe,
like,
and that
for
come
sure.
back. I honestly think it's cyclical. I think it's cyclical like fashion is. And then I think there will be like probably like trends in maybe 2 years that are going to be more directed towards probably back to like the more traditional lifting as opposed to maybe the Pilates. I don't know though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to say that because it feels so overwhelmingly like what it is right now, and it's hard to say that it will change, but I don't know.
There's definitely a lot of conversation happening now about around like longevity and
Yes.
like functional training and all of that, which I think is a good thing overall. Because I see a lot more people at the gym. Yes, there's a lot of people in like the strength training areas, but I see a lot of people doing like mobility work and like functional training, which I definitely didn't see like 5 years ago at the same gym. So I think that's a positive, but hopefully that kind of conversation leads into more like less of like an extreme on any end. There's kind of more of like a balance between the types of training that people have. So hopefully in like 20 to 30 years, we have just more like normal looking people that are like fit in all the different ways because it's not just physical
Yeah.
appearance, which we all I think agree with. So like I'm hoping it's trending that way. It's really hard to say, but the conversations are at least starting to happen.
That's such a good point. I do think, especially because of how ClassPass has kind of allowed people to try out so many different types of workouts, I now would like to add to my answer that it's going to be more of like hybrid athletes, people into like multiple different types of fitness options, which is like already happening now. And I also see a huge trend with kettlebells. I definitely am someone that is on that trend. I love kettlebells. But I definitely see that as, instead of like the racked weights and like the squat bars and stuff, I see like a huge trend leaning towards the kettlebell and like functional movement.
That's come back too. That was big in the 2000s. I was like,
Yeah,
There we go.
it's cyclical. It's
you know
just
what I
so
hung on to? The sustainability thing. I mean, this is somewhat related, but hey, it's just trainers talking about stuff too.
yeah.
Um, for me, I being around a long time, I think I have a unique perspective on this because I have very long-term clientele. So my longest running client is 18 years, tons of people in the 14, 15, 16-year range. And the sustainability thing is important because I always teach my students like, hey, listen, what you think is important now will probably be very different 15, 20 years from now. And if you end up having clients that long, they may come in very aesthetic motivated, but they will probably change a lot over time. Like as I've gotten older, like my clientele has gotten significant. I used to train mostly 20, 25, 35, 40-year-olds type of thing. I have so many 65-year-olds now and 70-year-olds. And I think my youngest people are in their 40s and they're not trying to look like they're 22. That's not even on their mind. They just want to feel better inside their bodies, have more confidence. Hell, they just want somebody to talk to. They have another person to talk to that's not someone they're responsible for or their employer or whatever it is for that. And I think they just value like a very just general looking person. I've actually had a lot of clients tell me, "Oh, I really don't like when people are super ripped and stuff," or this. And I say, listen, that's their journey. That's what they want to do. I said, but it's also very difficult to sustain that over a really long period of time. To your point, Caroline, that a lot of life changes hard over time. And I have some students in my weight training 2 class that I teach who are like 21-year-old guys, super yoked, young guys. I said, man, I used to be you. Like I'm like 25 years ago. And then you have a family, or then something changes in your life, or you move. I said, whatever you do, make it sustainable that you can continue to do this over the course of your life. Because there's going to be a lot of challenging times where you can't be in the gym for 3 hours. I'm telling you, that's never going to happen in the future. It's never going to happen. So I think there's a lot swirling around the look, which is also about like sustainable practices, which might mean you're not going to look like your 18-year-old self or whatever, type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I
You
mean,
shouldn't look like your 18-year-old self when you're 40, 50.
if you did, something happened. I don't know. I'm 47 and I definitely don't look like I was when I was 18, but it's pretty similar actually. But I never was trying to be gigantic either. That was never a thing. But I think that on some level, people will always be vain about things. Our trainers are gonna always want, if you're in a profession, it's going to be part of the business. I think on some level is people are going to struggle. We're going to struggle with it for a long time. I feel like,
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I think we're all like to an extent aesthetically motivated, and I don't think that's really a bad thing. Like, I think it's just having an awareness of like the balance and what's realistic, and being honest about that with other people. Like when you're training a client, maybe you do look a certain way because of your genetics or whatever else, the time that you have to train, but being honest about like what's realistic for a person, and again, like the sustainability aspect, I think that's huge. Just like being open with them, not setting unrealistic expectations.
The best thing, it was actually my physical therapist that told me, but he's like all into like obviously personal training as well. But I remember when I was recovering from a torn ACL, I was like, oh my gosh, I really want a thigh gap type of thing. It was, and he looked at me, he's like, you will never have one. He was like, get that out of your mind. You will never have one. The way your legs are structured, the way your hips are structured, and just the way you hold body fat, you will never have one. And ever since then, I was like, okay, bye. My dream, which I'm so grateful for. Like, it was a hard thing to hear in the moment, but it was super important because, yeah, he's right. I would truly have to get surgery in order for that to be a thing. And I'm not going to do that.
Not
You
gonna
just
do
got
that.
slapped with reality. Like, that's not
Yeah,
happening.
literally. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow, that's funny. That's a good story. Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting where things are going, because I think the longer you're in it, you just see these things. You're right. It's very cyclical. It's like, man, this is coming back, over and over again. But I think there will be a struggle always internally, as you said, Julia. People, there's nothing wrong. People we are visual people. We see things. But what I've often seen is, and working with so many trainers throughout the years and employment and stuff, is that it's really hard to overcome that, because societally that gets pushed onto you, that you have to look amazing. Like, you're not going to get clients if you don't look this way. That's what you're told for a lot of, especially back in the day. You're told you have to be at the peak of your conditioning so that people see you and go, I want to look like that. Which is crazy. That's actually crazy to say that now to me. I don't know why. Like, it's crazy, because
Yeah.
that's not what any of my clients want. Literally, they're just like,
Yeah.
I want to walk better. Like, I don't like basic stuff. I want to get up off the ground without
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
like it's taking super amounts of effort for that to
Yeah.
happen. I'd like to see it more turned to that direction, and for trainers to just give themselves more grace and be like, listen, you're just a normal person, and
Yeah.
you don't have to look at the peak of your genetic and physical conditioning. And by the way, that's not good for you, just so you know. It's really not.
Yeah.
As I always tell, I mean, how many bodybuilders are living into their 50s and 60s? Not a lot. I mean, it's like, it's a pretty
No.
unhealthy profession. Like, whenever this was a big thing back in the day when I was running clubs, was half of my staff were trying to do like physique contests and stuff like that. And by nature of those contests, they're extremely unhealthy. They're extreme versions of fitness, and your body look. And for that, and they always were miserable when they were doing it. I said, well,
Yeah.
because you're doing something that's not is really unhealthy for you. I mean, it's just an
Unnatural.
extreme
Yeah.
behavior,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't even think about this until you just said that. But another aspect that is, I think, that I kind of dealt with when I was in the yoga world, I am not an unbelievably flexible person. Like, when I was younger, I could do a split. I could basically do one, but whatever. I'm not super flexible, but I'm very good at my yoga practice. And people always associate like flexibility with like yoga and that being like a good teacher. And you look online, you see people doing these crazy positions. But my mother has been in the yoga community since she was 18, 16 or whatever. And so I've known ever since I was born, I've known people in the yoga community. And now when they're in their 60s, they like can barely walk. They have to get hip replacements because of all that hypermobility. Um, and that's like a totally other like aspect of fit, like being a trainer and stuff, what you're physically able to do, and being like associated with that. And again, with yoga, I always was nervous that someone in my class would be like, why can't you do a split or something like that, or like a certain inversion that I didn't feel comfortable with. Like, I don't feel comfortable doing headstands. I have reasons that we can get into another time, but yeah, those kind of situations. But again, that whole longevity and like understanding what's best for the long-term body is going to be super important.
I like that, the long-term body. I
Yeah.
mean, that goes both ways, right? For the client and for the trainer. What's the long-term body? And I think part of the key is getting to trainers when they're just starting to discuss this.
Yes.
You just get in the business. Next time we meet, we're going to be talking about kind of your part-time, kind of on the side trainer, kind of a side hustle versus your career trainer. And regardless of what you're in, you kind of have the same pressure, right? You're thinking someone's telling you, oh, you got to be super fit to be in this business. If we can get to people when they just enter, whether they're coming from another profession or they're just starting right into this, we have to get to them early and say, I know what you're seeing online is probably tell you the exact opposite what I'm about to tell you,
Yeah.
but give yourself some grace. You don't have to be pounding the gym constantly. It's a hard lesson to learn, I think, but I think also teaching the consumer is interesting
Yes.
too, because how do we get the consumer to better buy into what we're talking about? Because they have this
Yeah.
idea too. I can't hire a trainer that doesn't look great. How do we do that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
I think just be open, be the example that you want to see, be open about in conversations with clients and not non-clients. Um, yeah, just continue supporting maybe some more trainers that might not look the part or anything like that. Creating that community around you, I think, is like the best bit, I would say, the best way to go about.
Yeah, and I think like as other trainers, as people that have followings, they really need to like use those to kind of spread this message and support other trainers with those more diverse body types. But yeah, it's really just awareness and like teaching clients there's so much more to look for in a trainer, like their credentials, their years of experience, their personal lived experience. Just like having those conversations and again being open about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also the way you teach, like the verbiage you use. I remember like this was like such a big thing, but after when I first started like doing group classes and just personal training, I was like very adamant on after Thanksgiving, I would never be like, "Oh, burn off the turkey, burn off this." Like always being like the food, you needed that food, and look how awesome your lift is going to be because of all this added protein and carbs that you have. But yeah, so I would say just like the actual words that you speak to those around you and your clients.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I like stories too. Like I had a client one time way back in the day, and she was very like just aesthetically focused. She wanted to look this way. And I remember we had a really honest conversation, like in the middle of the session. And she was like, I'm gonna get a tummy tuck. I'm gonna do all these things. I gotta look this way. And I told her, I literally stopped the session. I said, if you're doing all this to look a certain way, you're never gonna be happy. You'll never reach the point you think you're going to be at. And even if you reach a point you feel okay, you'll want more and more. It'll never be good enough for you, ever. I said, so you got to focus on the other things that are happening to you inside your body, your mental well-being, how you're feeling about yourself, the confidence you're starting to gain, and that you by you doing this, you're actually giving a gift to other people, the gift of you can responsibly take care of other people in your life. And I see it all the time. This is something I think is really important is as people get older and they have to maybe tend to their parents or siblings and people get sick, they're thinking something about you. Like, man, I hope this person can actually help me. And
Yeah.
focusing on your ability to be functionally strong and available to people in your life is a real gift. Looking incredibly hot is not a gift for other people in your life. It only
Such a
matters
good
to
point.
you. No one else gives a shit about that. It's like over
Yeah.
time, you're pumped up
Point.
about it. Like, but so I said, you'll never reach this point you think you're trying to reach looks wise. You'll just want more. It's the disease of it. So focusing inward. And I remember this lady was crying. Man, she was crying so hard. And I just gave her a big hug. It's okay to just look like how you look. It's not a big deal. Like, I said, someone pressuring you to look this like a different way. And like, you're awesome the way you are. But our clients are getting all this stimuli from other people in their lives, online information. They're just getting bombarded, overstimulated with all this stuff telling them, you could look better. It's an incredible amount of stuff.
That's why the
Right.
fitness industry is a lot of billion-dollar industry because we
They're
tell people
selling,
you could always look just a little better,
Yeah.
spend just a little more money.
Right. Well, it's nice that I see things moving in a different direction. There are just going to be some other things. Julia, it sucks that you like it's going that way. You're like, it's changed in the past 6 months, and hopefully, it's a cyclical industry, but I think we're making some headway. I think we are. And these type
I
of
agree.
conversations are really important. And so for all of our trainer friends, colleagues out there, you don't have to be at the peak of your fitness. And in fact, a lot of people that are hiring you are not even concerned about that. because they just want to feel better. We just want to help people feel better. So that's our message. Should trainers look fit? Just look how you look. Just have a good relationship with exercise and nutrition and all these things, and be a good human to your clients. If you're a good human to your clients, they're going to get a huge amount out of what you're doing with them for that. Any final parting words?
Yeah, I think that was perfect.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
We're here for beauty, right? No, not really. I'm just like, we're not
Inner
here for
beauty,
beauty.
inner beauty.
Just
Inner
inner,
beauty.
inside, right inside.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for today. So we'll be back next time, looking at part-time versus full-time training. Julia and Caroline, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is great.